Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjalimanatosmi laye sambodhayet chittam vikshiptam shamayet punaha sakashayam vijaniyat samapraptam na chalayet. Om. So I hope everybody enjoyed the questionnaire that we had in the last class. There's one other question I want to add before we actually move on to the next section. We saw that Chitta Bhumi, that is, there are 5 states of the mind. There is Kshipta, Mudha, Vikshipta, Ekagra, Niruddha. And so far in all our discussions, we have sort of demonized the Kshipta, Mudha, Vikshipta state, and then say, in this state you don't have yoga at all. But the question is, do these 3 states have anything to contribute to yoga? Do they have a role to play? Because when we go back and see the nature of sutra, they cannot bring any idea or even a word or a syllable which is not relevant to the subject matter, isn't it? So is it simply taken by Patanjali Maharshi, these 3 are to be examined as detrimental to yoga, or is there anything more important than that? So let us go back and address this question. And before we address that question, we'll have to recall a few terms that we have studied so that we understand clearly this question. So the first is, we talk about chitta, we talk about chitta. So there is, and vritti, of course, there is, so 3 interconnected ideas, chitta, chitta and vritti. So let's look at the chitta. So what is this chitta? This chitta is consciousness, it is awareness, it is also known as intelligence. It is also called as prajna. Prajna means it is that which identifies the cognitive ability. There is a cognitive ability in all sentient beings. That cognitive ability is called chitta. That is the ability of recognition. This ability, the cognitive ability or the chitta, it will never change. It will never change even though everything else is changing. So the first important understanding we have to have is Chit is the cognitive ability that does not change, even though everything it cognizes change. So this is Chit. So this is not a passive observer, but it also has got a power. And therefore Chit has got power. What is the power? It is called as Chit Shakti. In fact, we have heard this term even in the Lalita Sahasranama, which says Chit Shakti Chetana Rupa Jada Shakti Jadatmika. So this Chit has got a power, and that power is called Chit Shakti. And this Chit Shakti is none other than the Jnana Shakti. So Chit is the cognitive ability. Chit has got a power, which is the power to know, power of jnana, not power to know, but power of knowledge itself, jnana shakti. And it has another shakti, the power to remove ajnana. So Chit has these qualities: cognitive ability, It has got a power, and that power is called Jnana Shakti, and the power of Jnana Shakti is to remove Ajnana. Now, what is this Chitta? This Chitta is the conglomeration of the Antahkarana, which is Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara. So, this Purusha, Tada Drashtu Swarupe Avasthanam, that is Purusha. That Purusha is Chit Swarupaha. So, if you were to give a definition of what this Chit is, that Chit is none other than Purusha, and this Purusha's Swarupa is Jnana Swarupa. So if Purusha is Jnana Swarupa, what is Purusha's Shakti? It is the Jnana Shakti. So Purusha has got a Jnana Shakti. So Purusha and Chitta can be used interchangeably. And when we do that, what happens? This Purusha Chaitanya, that is the power of the Purusha, it reflects in Chitta. So therefore, what is Chitta? Chitta is a reflecting medium. The reflecting medium, because Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, these four aspects of Antakarana are inert in nature. But these inert entities, the Antakarana, the inner organs, are actually given functionality by Chitta. So therefore there is Antakarana. This Antakarana is having a functionality. Manas has got emotion, etc. And that functionality is lent by, is made possible by the presence of Chitta. When you sit in the car and drive, it is the wheels and other things that are actually moving. But who gives motion to that? The ability to go where you want. You are the one who determines where you should go when you are driving your car. So just imagine that you are the driver of the car is the Chitta, and the car is actually the Antakarana or the Chitta. So what this car is doing, it is demonstrating the passage of the distance. Similarly, the Chitta demonstrates the vrittis. Okay? Because how does it do? What is its ability? The ability is Chitta is a reflecting medium, derives the power from Chitta, and it acquires the characteristics from Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas, which is in Prakriti. See, this is how the two come together. All this is fine. Now the question is, why does this Chitta, by means of the influence of Chitta, associates itself with Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas and demonstrates vritti? Is the next important question. It is because the Chitta, because of this association with Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas, but which has been propelled by the energy of Chitta, what it does is, it goes after Sukha. So that was going to be my another question. Why is it that every human being goes and pursues Sukha? What is the ontological, philosophical reason for which we go and follow Sukha? Here is the question. It is because Chitta's association with the Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas. And how was that association caused? Where did it get energy? It got the energy from Chitta. So the characteristics of Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas are now ignited by the power of the Chitta. And therefore we pursue Sukha. And in our pursuit of sukha, chitta subjects itself to raga dvesha. So this is another fundamental question. Why is it I have got raga dvesha? I have raga dvesha because the chitta has now become a ground, a meeting place for chit shakti and sattva-rajas-tamo gunas of prakriti. So this is an important understanding about chitta, and therefore what it does is, in our pursuit of sukha, the chitta, when it makes wrong formulations of sattva-rajas-tamo gunas, kshipta, mudha, vikshipta states arise. And therefore, Yoga Shastra is saying there is a benefit for these kshipta, vikshipta, mudha states, because kshipta, vikshipta, mudha states brings up to our awareness, to the forefront, brings it up to the stage, so that the yogi can actually understand how chitta gets attached to sattva-rajas-tamo gunas. And who illumines this? Chit illumines this. So this algorithm is extremely important. Otherwise, when the teacher says, you must have a one-pointed focus to control your chitta vritti, we will never be convinced. We will never be convinced to control our chitta vritti, because we do not understand that sukha dukkha is caused by our own association, a misappropriation of the chit shakti in our chitta by associating with the wrong formula of sattva-rajas-tamo gunas. Therefore, there is a benefit of identifying the kshipta, mudha, vikshipta state, because it reveals in our chitta the conditionings that are created by vasana and samskara. So now you please follow, why is it this chitta is going after sattva-rajas-tamo gunas? Sattva-rajas-tamo gunas, what do? They cause possibility of kshipta, vikshipta, mudha. And how did this attachment of chitta to kshipta, vikshipta, mudha happen? It is because of vasanas and samskaras. Now, the presence of chitta, the presence of purusha, what it does is, it identifies the following. How does it identify? Because of its jnana shakti. Chit's power is a cognitive power. By means of cognitive power, the kshipta, vikshipta, mudha states in my chitta is caused by chitta's association with sattva-rajas-tamo gunas. And that association is propelled by my own vasanas and samskaras. That identification comes because of the manifestation of kshipta, vikshipta, mudha in our chitta. And therefore, there is a contribution of kshipta, vikshipta and mudha states in our yogic practice also. Because every time there is these three states, we can say that now my chitta is manifesting vasanas and samskaras. And because of this, the sage identified this chitta bhumi of kshipta, vikshipta and mudha also. So that was one of the questions I wanted to add to the list of questions that are already there. Then, so we saw that strategies were given. Either you can do vitarka, vichara, you can do contemplation, you can think, and then you can examine life. We also did, just now we did the Vitarka, saying that how does Kshipta Vikshipta Muda state arise, we asked. And we also said it is because of Sattva-Rajas-Tamo gunas. All this is thinking part, contemplative part, but that is not adequate. So we also need to have Shraddha, Virya, Smriti. We saw that. And we also saw it has to be supported by Ishvara Pranidhana. All of these things we identified. Now, just because we have done all these things, it doesn't mean that our yogic journey will be free from obstacles. There is going to be many, many obstacles that are thrown in our way because of this person, this being in the creation. As long as we are alive, we are always prone and subject to these antarayas. This antar ayati, antaram vyavadhanam eti iti antarayaha is the etymology. Antaram vyavadhanam eti means that which comes between the yogi and his goal. Anything that comes between the person and his goal is called antaraya. So these antarayas are identified in Sutra number 30. Vyadhi, Sthana, Samshaya, Pramada, Alasya, Avirati, Bhranti Darshana, Alabdha Bhumikatva, Anavasthitani, Chitta Vikshepaha, Te Antarayaha. 9 chain of antaraya, obstacles arise. Now the interesting question is, are these antarayas caused by chittavrittis that we identified, kshipta, vikshipta, mudha, or are they external, coming from Prakriti? Now the answer is both. Because from kshipta, vikshipta, mudha state, some obstacles can arise. Obstacles can also arise from the external agencies such as the nature. So what are the 9? Vyadhi. Vyadhi means sickness. Sthana means apathy. Samshaya is doubt. Then Pramada is carelessness. Alasya is laziness, to procrastinate. Avirati is indulging in sensual demands. I'm hungry, so I don't care about study. And then so anything that the body demands, then that also can cause avirati. Bhranti darshana is hallucination, euphoria. It can be either caused by one's own imagination or it can be caused by even sickness. Bhranti darshana. Then alabdha bhumikatva is falling down from a state that has been attained. We go through the yogic state and then we have some achievement. Something comes in our life. So some challenge, real serious challenge will come in our life. And when that comes, we give up our path. So some event happens in our life. It may be sickness, it may be somebody's sickness, it may be a life-changing event such as a change of job or loss of a loved one. All this can happen. Suddenly, you have seen how people give up everything and then just withdraw and shut themselves off. And they stop in their path of either jnana or in their path of yoga. And then what happens, if we don't practice it, continue to do it, we will fall down. It is called as alabdha bhumikatvam. And then chitta vikshepaha, and then inconsistency. Chitta vikshepa is what we already saw. Chitta vikshepa, these inconsistencies are all impediments between the person and the goal. So therefore, Patanjali Maharshi is warning us about this. So, let us see a couple of examples of how we can deal with obstacles also. First of all, let us define what is Vyadhi. Vyadhi means disease. What is disease? It is a functional disorder. It's a functional disorder of the body. This can be caused by, according to Ayurveda, three things. One is called dhatu, second is rasa, and the third is called indriya. So there are three sources for sickness. So dhatu relates to the kapha, vata, pitta states of the body. The rasa is the result of taking certain foods that are not agreeable, or the weakness of the indriyas such as bad eyesight, hearing impairment and all that. All these things are classified as vyadhi. So any of these vyadhis can become an impediment to yoga. And any of these can also cause an antaraya. An antaraya is where a person's yogic state is completely disturbed. So you would have seen a person of immense amount of spiritual maturity completely collapsing under the weight of vyadhi from any of these three sources. It could be oneself, or it could be one's very dear and near. So what about the one who has already achieved chitta-vritti nirodha? For one who has, because we have already found three strategies for chitta-vritti nirodha. And then we also established that all these three strategies should be used. We must think, we must do vitarka vichara. We must have Shraddha, Virya, Smriti. We must do Ishvara Pranidhana. They are not mutually exclusive, we have established. What about somebody who has been practicing all these things, and then in his life, Vyadhi is introduced? How does he deal with it? Is he also crushed as viciously by this Vyadhi as a person who has not achieved any yogic state? So a beautiful real story will show that for a yogi, Vyadhi, even though it looks like it is an antaraya, need not necessarily be an antaraya. So for anyone who has got a serious Vyadhi, two things are possible. One is the person is totally unconscious or so compromised that he does not know what is happening around him. And for that person, there is no dukkha. This I can tell you from first-hand experience, that in the current state of how Usha is, she is sleeping for 22-23 hours. Even when she is awake, she is not experiencing any physical pain. Since she is not experiencing any physical pain, but at the same time her cognitive ability is severely compromised, there is no dukkha for her. All dukkha is for us when we are seeing her in that state. That is all. For her, there is no dukkha. Or what about one who has got a serious vyadhi, but the mind is fully functional and aware? In that state, what happens? The person goes into depression and dukkha. So again, the absence of dukkha or the presence of dukkha is only the functional ability of the body, but the thing is, there may be no yoga there. Now, where is yoga? Yoga is where a person has become a jnani by a long practice of vitarka vichara, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti and Ishvara Pranidhana. In late 19th century, 1856 to be exact, a great person was born, and he was an extraordinary educationist. He was a philanthropist. He was a social reformer, a patriot. He was born in Bengal, and this person, his name was what was his name? Datta. What's the first name? I'll get that name in a second. So this Datta, we'll call him as Datta. This Datta actually had a guru. Oh, Ashwini Kumar Datta. So Ashwini Kumar Datta, a very great philosopher, philanthropist in Bengal, and then he had a guru by name Rajnarayan Basu. And Ashwini Kumar Datta became very busy in his life after the tutelage with his guru, and for several years they had lost contact. And at one point of time, Rajnarayan Basu, guru of Ashwini Kumar Datta, became very ill. And then he had a paralytic stroke, and this student Ashwini Kumar Datta was very sad to hear this, and he was very distressed. And then he had so much dukkha that a very great teacher was suffering. So when this suffering of Datta was unbearable, Ashwini Kumar Datta actually goes to visit his guru Rajnarayan Basu. And then when he goes to visit Rajnarayan Basu, he was unable to move out from his bed. Only one part of the body was functional. And then, of course, you can see how difficult it is if one whole part of the body, a person has lost control. So Guru Basu sees his student Datta, and as soon as he sees him, the face lit up. In fact, even though one part of the face could not find any expression, however contorted the face was, you could see that the teacher was very, very delighted to see his student. Overjoyed, Datta says, "Oh, Ashwini, come on in. I have not seen you for ages." He welcomes him. And from a good hand, he raises his hand, and then he gives him an embrace as best as he could for his student. Then they started talking. And one of the things was when the student Ashwini Kumar Datta asked his teacher, "How are you doing? How is your health? I have heard that you have had a stroke." He did not answer that question at all. He started talking about Ashwini Kumar Datta, "What are you doing?" And then at that point of time, Datta had several institutions, educational institutions he had started. So the Guru is very much interested in how those educational institutions are running. And in those educational institutions, are you teaching literature? Are you teaching music? Have you been introducing the children from Gita and Upanishad? So for the whole afternoon, the entire conversation, all the time, was nothing other than education, educating, and the various subjects of contemplation, science, arts, everything. Now the question is, who was sad? Was it the teacher who was suffering sad, or was it the student who was there in his presence was sad? So Ashwini Kumar Datta was very carefully observing his teacher. Never once he mentioned about his sickness. Never once he complained that, I cannot lift this hand. Never once he said that, I have to subject myself physically to the service of my wife. None of that. So then time came for Ashwini Kumar to leave. At that point of time, he brings back the conversation and tells, "Sir, I have come here with great mental distress after hearing about your stroke. I came here to comfort you. I came here to tell you that I am here. What seva can I do? But what is it I see here in you? I see in you an extraordinary great spirit. I have been worried for the last 1 month since you are bedridden, and you are actually bedridden for last 1 month. Don't you feel any dukkha because of this vyadhi? Then Radnarayan said, Bhaiya, Ashwini, see, I am already old. I have lived a very productive life. By Ishvara Krupa, I have seen beautiful things, traveled, met a lot of people, enjoyed many, many pleasures. And Ishvara saw me, how much I was engaged in the world. And my heart was always pining throughout my life. I have not done enough prayer. I have not done enough Shastra Abhyasa. I haven't got any time to do this. There is samsara, there is my work, and all these things, all my life. I was sitting in my puja room and begging, saying that when will I ever become ekaki, without any clinging, nispruhaha, peaceful, shantaha, without much to need. I am quoting Adi Shankara, without quoting much need. I was thinking, when will I ever get this opportunity? And now, look at Ishvara's Kripa. He knew that as long as I have got this powerful functioning body, I will not sit down and I will not rest. So therefore, by Ishvara Kripa, he wants me to stop all restless activities and lie down here in his dhyana. And therefore, he relieved my mind from the demands of this deha by making this deha not functional. When I see this kripa, I am not bothered by this sickness at all. Now, this illustrates an extraordinary jiva where vyadi fails to be an impediment. So all of these we know. I want to take one more example. One more example, because apathy can be corrected by becoming active, doubt can be corrected by knowledge, laziness can be corrected by, again, by determination and yoga. Then hallucination and bhranti or euphoria can all be dealt with. There is one other thing that somehow is hard to handle, and that is carelessness. The best of the people can become careless. So the carelessness is acting without concentration. It is acting indifferently, and indifference, especially towards chittavritti nirodha, deliberately avoiding the states kshipta, vikshipta and mudha states, and not caring for ekagra and samadhi. That is carelessness. That is pramada. But the person is always active. So what happens to his activity? It is like Adi Shankara says beautifully in his commentary, it is like a ball that you throw at the top of the staircase, and the ball bounces down the staircase erratically, and you do not know where the ball lands. Otherwise, when somebody throws a ball, what is the idea? Suppose you are playing basketball, The idea is when you throw the basketball, it should go into the basket, isn't it? But when you throw it down a staircase, what control do you have? This is pramada. And in pramada, if there is no paschatapa, that is, that time careless, a person does not have paschatapa, there is no yoga, but where there is paschatapa, a person gets yoga. This is the famous story from the Mahabharata. It's actually one of the upakhyanas. Once upon a time, there was a very great rishi. And this rishi, when he was still a young man, he decided to embark upon tapas. So he went and sat, and continuously he refrained himself from all pleasures, food, water, and sat in deep tapas. So many days and weeks and months passed, and the sage was sitting there immobile. And then around him, the ants built, just like Valmiki, the ants built a anthill. So one day, this ashrama in front of which he was sitting also was in a dilapidated state, and a lot of trees started growing. It became a very dense forest, and in that forest, a lot of wild animals also were coming, and it was on the outskirts of a kingdom, of a capital of a kingdom. And the king, one of the things they do to control wild animals is periodically they go for hunting. The king, with his daughter, her name was Sukanya, with his daughter Sukanya, because he was so attached to his daughter that wherever the king went, he took his daughter with his retinue for the hunting. He takes Sukanya also, 18, 19 years old. Now Sukanya was not interested in hunting, but she was impetuous, she was fickle, and she was restless, so she decided, let me go and explore the forest. She walked here and there, and then she chanced to come upon this sage who is meditating, and he was in the anthill. She looks at the anthill, and in the middle of the anthill, there was a hole. 2 holes were there. And from those 2 holes, bright, diamond-like shining objects were there. She was so struck when such a beautiful 2 shining objects were there. So what she did was, she explored, is there anybody around? And then there was actually a hermitage, but it had crumbling walls, and there was absolutely no sign of anybody living there. So she was stuck in wonder. What is this? There is this dilapidated house and there is nothing, but there is a shining object in this sandhill. So what she did was, she took up a stick and wanted to find out what it is, and poked into these 2 shining objects in this anthill. A loud scream came out from within. It happened to be actually the bright eyes of this great tapasvi, Maharshi Chavana. So Chavana Maharshi was doing penance there. So Chavana Maharshi is one of the Gotra Pravartakas. In fact, my own personal Gotra, Bhargava Chavana. That Chavana Maharshi we are talking about, from the Bhrigu clan. This Chavana Maharshi, she poked the eyes. Blood started coming out of these 2 eyes of Chavana Maharshi. And obviously this girl was extremely anxious, nervous, afraid. So she throws the stick right there and runs away, and then hides in a corner in the retinue of her father. Now what happened? Suddenly the king And all the people who were associated with him started becoming sick. Not only all the people became sick, even the animals were sick. He could not understand how this could happen. Because, when you eat something, when 10 people, 100 people eat, we go to a wedding, and then 200 to 300 people eat, 1 or 2 people will get stomach upset. Not everybody does, isn't it? Here, everyone, including the animals, got a stomach upset, and then they got very, very sick, and he did not understand what was happening. Fortunately for the king, he also had brought his guru along with him. And the astrologers were also there, because it's a whole retinue. They looked at all the signs in the sky, the stars and all that. Maharaja, everything is pointing to one thing. There is some sage who is greatly in distress. Somebody in our group has caused harm to a very great sage. Now, the king has to know everything that is happening in this country. In fact, this we have seen even in Chanakya's Arthashastra, that it's very, very important that the king is aware of everything in the nook and corner of this country, and the king knew that this was the place of Chavana's ashrama. So the king immediately infers that it was Chavana who might have been hurt, and they all rush there and to see the bleeding eyes of this great sage. And they remove all the mud around, and then they find a tottering old man whose both eyes have become blind. Sukanya suddenly realized pramada. That's the link. Careless. Just because she saw something bright and shining, can she just take a piece of twig and then poke into that? And that pramada caused such great distress to Chavana Maharshi. And Sukanya begs her, they say, just pardon. Oh, great one. I have done a pramada out of curiosity. So curiosity, if it is not done in a controlled manner, can also cause harm. This we have seen in our toddlers. Why is it moms are so very careful as to how the toddlers move about in the house? Because out of curiosity and out of pramada, they hurt themselves. So Sukanya, highly trained as a noble girl, she says, now you have become blind and you are also old. You cannot manage yourself. Please accept me as your wife. The king was shocked. 18-year-old marrying a 70-year-old person? How is that possible? And also blind. And not only that, Sukanya is used to luxurious life. Life with a sage is far from it. And he tries to persuade her. Dear daughter, you are too young to marry. This person is very old. We can take Chavana Maharshi to our palace and make him comfortable. You can serve him. Then Sukanya says, I have done a pramada. And this pramada has got to be done with paschatapa. I have to atone for what I have done. So carelessness, invariably pramada, can cause quite a fall in our yogic practice. So what she does is, she was so full of remorse. She says, no, I'm going to marry Chavana and take care of him. So paschatapa takes place. And then she marries him and serves him so diligently all the time. One day, Sukanya goes to the river to get water. And when she goes there, the divine twins, Ashwini Devatas, they chance to have been there. Ashwini Devatas now look at Sukanya under her extraordinary beauty, and both of them lust after her. They very well knew that she was wife of Chavana. But then said, your husband is old, he is weak, he is blind, he is of no use to you. What pleasure can you derive from him? Look at us. We are young, we are handsome. Just abandon your husband and you be with one of us. A yogi sometimes may commit a pramada, go through paschattapa, but will never commit that once again. That is the importance of paschattapa. Never repetition, no repetition whatsoever. So she says, absolutely no way, I cannot desert my husband, it is a commitment. I will give you a shapa if you pursue me anymore. Pativrata. Her shapa will be very effective, obviously. So very crestfallen, they go away, but they could not forget her. So next day they hatch a plan. So what they do is they come back to her and said that you are such a great Pativrata, we could not charm you, but we want to give you a boon. And that boon is, we are the physicians of gods. We can give your husband eyesight and we will make him young. But on one condition. Now you will have 3 young men, fully functional. And we want you to choose one of them. Now, Sukanya, obviously, she wanted her husband to be young. She wanted her husband to be able to see. So for a moment, her mind slightly slips. And she says, yes, you revive my husband, and then I will choose one of the 3 of you. So lo and behold, Ashwini Devatas bring eyesight to Chavana, make him young again, but then they make Chavana an exact replica of the 2 of them. Why did he do that? Why did they do it? They did it because if Chavana had regained his original form as a youth, knowing Sukanya, she would never have accepted either of the Ashwini Devatas. So they had to confuse her. Same thing you see in the Naladamayanti Nalopakhana also. So they become identical threesome. Not an easy choice for Sukanya, because whomsoever she chooses will be her husband from then on. Now, yoga. In yoga, when pramada is corrected by paschattapa and the yogic practice continues. So what did she do? From the moment she got married to Chavana, old man, blind man, abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha. She practiced abhyasa and vairagya. And as she was practicing abhyasa and vairagya, her service to her husband was with Shraddha, Bhakti, Virya. And it was done not out of impulse of the pramada that she had done, but by vitarka vichara. And throughout, when she was bringing the water and helping her husband to do the daily chores of puja, yajna, etc., she was also doing Ishvara Pranidhana. So the entire pramada was converted into Paschatapa, into Abhyasa Vairagya, and the three strategies of attaining yoga. Now, her Chit Shakti was more powerful than all the influence of the Trigunas on the Chit. So now she starts carefully observing the eyes of the three Ashwini Devatas and the third one, which is her husband. She very carefully looks. In one eye, she saw lust. She knew right away it is not my husband. In another eye, she saw anxiety and worry. She knew that was not the man. In the other one, she saw total calm, peace and love. Then Sukanya said, I'm going to be with this person. And he turned out to be Chavana only, her own husband. So what this illustrates is antarayas do come. And the antarayas we have listed as 9 of them. And this antaraya, if it is handled through yoga, then that antaraya can be converted into successful yoga. If it is not, then what happens? There is going to be a downfall. So this we see in the Ahalya Prasanga, there was a downfall, there was a papakarya, but then it was redeemed because of tapas. Similarly, there was a shapa for Vali also. There was a shapa for Ravana also. But why is it for them there was no redemption? It is because, first of all, there was no tapas, and secondly, they had no yoga. As far as the perfection of yoga is concerned, one of the antarayas, one of the 9 antarayas, they failed to handle. So therefore, Shastra says he is punished. Now the question is, who gets punished and who gets redeemed? Again, punishment and redemption is not at the whim and fancy of Ishvara. So the Shastra says, one who is a tapasvi, one who is avrujinaha, from that moment onwards, free from sin, akamahataha, who will not be waylaid by kama, brahmavit, who knows about Brahman, and then shrotriyaha, one who is committed to the knowledge of the Shruti. So we also have to give this strategy of becoming yoga. So tapasvi, sinless, avrujinaha, akamahataha, not waylaid by kama, brahmavit, shrotriyaha. When all these things happen, at that point of time, vyadhi and stya does not come in the way. So therefore, what was required? Any of these antarayas, one of the most important things that are required is tat pratishedartham ekatatvabhyasaha. Sutra number 32. Tat pratishedartham ekatatvabhyasaha. We have to have a one-pointed, a single-pointed practice. So Sukanya's practice was completely one-pointed. it is my husband and nothing else. So this Vyadhi, Sthana, Samshaya, Pramada, Alasya, Avirati, Bhranti Darshanabhyam, Alabdha Bhumikatva, Anavasthitani Chitta Vikshepaha. All of these things happened. But then, how to identify that we are affected by one or the other? That question is answered in 31, Sutra number 31. It manifests as dukkha. So let us see what is dukkha. Any experience that I don't like is dukkha. Pratikula anubhava. All the time we are having some experience. If that experience is going to debilitate us, it is dukkha. It can happen from vyadhi, etc. And this dukkha can come from external agency, adhyatmika, adibhautika, adidaivika. We have talked about this. From all these three sources it can happen. Daurmanasya is where my desires do not fructify, then mind gets disturbed, stirred. We call it as kshobha. When the mind gets this kshobha, it becomes, what happens to the chitta? The chitta becomes vikshipta. So what is the root of vikshipta state of the mind? It is daurmanasya. What is the root? How do we experience dukkha? When we have become actually in a kshipta state, restless state. What happens in vyadhi? In vyadhi, the person goes into muda state because there is no awareness at all. The only focus is about the vyadhi. Where is yoga at that point of time? Angameta is where the body is constantly restless, and therefore we have introduced the concept of asana for the sake of control of body. And then Shvasa Prashvasa is where we are breathing without any volition, automatic breathing. All these things will end up in Vikshipta Chitta only. So these 9 plus 5, all these 9 plus 5, 9 plus 4 we can also say, Shvasa Prashvasa can be bunched together. 9 plus 4, 13 of the antarayas end up in vikshipta state of the mind. And to control this is tat pratishedhartham, so that this state can be controlled, even in the state of vyadhi. Because we saw the example of Ramnarayan Basu. Even in that state, ekatatvabhyasaha, that ekatatvabhyasa, I would recommend Ishvara Pranidhana as a very powerful means. And this ekatatvabhyasa can be done through japa. So nama japa, constant repetition of a Ishtadevata mantra, this japa reinforces the concentration of the mind. Because whenever the mind wavers in their behavior, immediately we can bring it back by Ishvara Pranidhana. Since the focus for Patanjali Maharshi is not so much about Ishvara Pranidhana, but more about what the yogi can do by himself. In the following beautiful sutra, he introduces 4 important strategies, which we will see in our next class.